Welcome to Own the Season podcast. We will talk to industry insiders along with outdoor enthusiasts to help you own your season. Now let's join hosts Art and Michelle Helen with Brad Jones. Own the Season podcast is brought to you by The Hunter's Vault. Cool, protect, and age your harvest with great results. Full size, but yet portable. The Hunter's Vault. Find out more at thehuntersvault.com.
Hello and welcome to Own the Season podcast. I'm Michelle Helen, and today it's me and Art Helen and Brad Jones, and we're talking about one of Art's favorite topics to discuss, crossbows.
Why is it always on me that it's always,
You picked it. Or, unless Brad did, but
Yeah.
I did
didn't pick
not.
it.
Yeah,
No.
I did not
I
pick
did.
today's topic.
And I think part of it is right now it's just a huge talk. I mean,
Yeah.
everywhere.
A lot of chatter.
Yeah, there is. There's a ton of chatter on social media and TV shows. It's everywhere, and I think for good reason. And
What's the chatter? Because I've been living under a rock recently, I guess. What's all the bit talk about right now?
Well, a lot of it is people are saying that you should only use crossbows if you have a certain age, elderly, or have a physical challenge. They don't want the use of crossbows during the rut. They should have their own season, they're saying. Just stuff like that.
Okay. So back to kind of some of how where some of the original crossbow rules kind of were regarding the people who, can use them, and that there's an advantage. So they shouldn't be used during the rut. Because I think, for the most part too, like there's I guess maybe I'm not going to say most, a lot of states, I'll say, there aren't gun seasons during the rut, right?
Right.
Would you say that's true? So that's kind of the thing. Like it's usually archery only during that period, and the gun seasons are coming, long before if it's some kind of early season or later.
Yeah, and technology is what's changing it. 5-10 years ago when crossbows became legal in a lot of states to use during archery season, it took me a little while to get the idea of this. And then I watched people like my dad and a couple friends that had disabilities that were out there shooting the crossbows, and I saw how big and bulky and noisy. And they did have a few advantages, but they still were only, 40-yard piece of equipment.
Right.
Because
it kind of, like clunky, right?
Right.
Like not terribly convenient.
the only advantages that you had were it was already drawn back. You might have had a scope on it. You might not have. And so when it came in, people were like, well, there was less movement, there was less. And so, which was somewhat true, but they were, again, big, bulky. You still had to move, but again, only 40 yards. They were 340 feet per second, just like a vertical bow, right?
Right, yeah.
And you could set the vertical bows up to be just as fast. So, there were, and then the argument was, well, look at today's technology and blinds. Now you've got all these blinds, so the deer aren't going to see a draw anyway. So, because you're sitting in an elevated blind that's got dark windows and yada, 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 which, honestly, it did take some of that equation out for drawing that bow, and now all of a sudden, you were speed for speed, everything was back almost to an equal playing table, where now all of a sudden, man, things have changed. And not only in the crossbow world, but in all of it. Now you look at Iowa is trying to ban trail cameras on public land. And they're also talking about banning any motorized vehicle which also then includes e-bikes because they are
E-bikes,
motorized.
Yeah.
Right? So now all of a sudden, because what technology has done, and now people are getting farther into the woods with e-bikes, they're scouting better, they're knowing these things on public land. I don't want to say private landowners are upset about it. I mean, I own my own land. But there's a drive behind it somewhere, that why can't they use these? Are they now seeing my deer? Well, number one, they're not your deer, just like the ones on my
100%.
private land are not my deer.
Yeah.
And so because of that technology change, they're trying to shut all that stuff down too and bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the same with crossbows. Now you look at your crossbow and, I've got friends that are shooting them because, they have disabilities, some more than others. And then, you look at my dad at 82, 83 years, going to be 83, and he shoots a crossbow. He doesn't hunt much anymore because of, just getting to the stand and getting up in the stand and different things. But now these bows are not 350 feet per second anymore, or 340 feet per second. They aren't big. They aren't bulky. They're super lightweight. They're super compact. And some of these things are shooting 500 plus feet per second.
So there's a clearer advantage.
Huge.
So let me ask this, because I'm for the most part in the camp of if it's legal, you can do it, and also anything to get people out in the woods or keep people out in the woods, whether it's new hunters or old hunters, and we need people who are hunting and buying those licenses, voting accordingly to protect our hunting rights. So would it be more palatable to you, Art, and Brad, I don't know where you sit on it, and the others that are making all the chatter, if they had if they had their own season or some type of structure to that, and maybe are there different record books like already for crossbows? Yes. Or where do they sit? So I feel like would giving it that different season, and separating it out from just archery, would that appease the general public that are complaining?
It probably would, Michelle, with these folks that are against it. And I think like you, if it's legal, we should be able to use it. So the people that are against it are saying there should be a separate season, some of them, and they want it outside of the archery season altogether. Well, the archery season in Wisconsin is way too long. So what are you going to do? Put them out there in end of January and give them their season?
Or I guess, in Wisconsin at least, you can use a downgraded weapon during a gun season.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they have, and we have plenty of gun seasons in Wisconsin. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to wear orange.
Right.
But if they're in a blind, and not everybody's maybe in a blind with their crossbow because you can set it on a rail. If they're able-bodied or otherwise able to get up into a tree stand, they just, have the rail up. But there's plenty of gun season that it could be used for. Or maybe it's a shortened, maybe some of it overlaps with the archery season, but it's shortened. It doesn't go.
Maybe we give them the peak of the rut.
Well, no, I mean, and let me clear this up. Michelle says that, I don't like them and they shouldn't. That's not true. I agree with both Brad and Michelle and say if it's legal, I don't have a problem with it because I agree. We do need to get them out there. Where I have the issue with this is I talk to a lot of guys that own crossbows. And when they look at me and say, it doesn't give me an advantage, I look at them and say, you're full of shit. Okay. I'll tell anybody that. If you tell me flat out that a crossbow does not give you an advantage, you're lying to yourself to make yourself feel better, because they do give you an advantage. If the season structure is so right now that it's legal, I don't care. Use it, but don't lie to me or everybody else to make yourself feel better that you can use it. Okay? What they are is, number one, it's easier because once it's sighted in, it's sighted in. Granted, they will come out of tune over time, just like a regular bow, so you have to have them retuned. But once it's sighted in, it's sighted in. And scopes today for these crossbows are made so that you can take a scope, turn it to the speed that bow is shooting, sight that in at 20 yards, and it now has that thing sighted in all the way out to 70 yards, a lot of these scopes. Some of them to 100. Okay, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Which is far exceeding any, compound
and
range.
I mean, can I shoot a compound at 100 yards? Absolutely. Am I going to shoot a deer at that? Probably not. But you shouldn't with that crossbow either, even though it's shooting 500 feet per second. And that's part of my frustration is I listen to these guys and they're like, well, I shoot, whatever. It groups at 100 yards. It's, the sub one or whatever. It's supposed to shoot at like 100 yards. You're supposed to get 1-inch groups. Okay, there's rifles that don't do that. And even if they do, just because that piece of equipment is built for that doesn't mean you are capable of that. There are cars out there that are built to go 200 miles an hour. I've seen a lot of people that cannot drive 20 freaking miles an hour and do it well. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's just, an excuse for these guys. Well, I'm going to shoot a deer at 100 because it says I can. My scope is sighted in for that. And then you get to the, people are like, well, there's so many more deer that are wounded with a crossbow than a bow and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I've never seen the statistics on that. Whether that's true or that's bow hunters against, crossbow hunters and crossbow hunters saying that, bow hunters wound more deer. And I don't know. But I do think that these numbers, and I've never seen the statistics on this, but I would believe now, because once crossbows became legal in the state of Wisconsin, the archery harvest numbers have skyrocketed, over the years. But yet our rifle numbers have plummeted. But at the end of the year, numbers are pretty close for total harvest. I mean, compared to what they were in the 80s, we're down because deer numbers are just down. CWD, EHD, less hunters, wolves, just more predators. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it's down. But for the last so many years, total numbers have been pretty close, right? And I believe what's happening is because our generation of hunters is getting older and older.
What?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we aren't recruiting. And that is one thing why I agree with the crossbows that, hey, if it gets them out there, and part of the reason that it gets them out there, again, once it's sighted in, you don't have to practice every day to feel comfortable. And our youth today,
it's just not youth that don't have time to practice, that don't have time or don't.
But
make
a lot
time
of
to
the
practice.
youth that would be getting into it, now we have summer baseball, summer basketball, summer
year-round everything.
Year-round, yeah.
Soccer.
I mean, you name it, because they aren't hunting because they need to keep up with the Joneses. That everybody wants to be the next, professional baseball player, basketball player, things like that.
Well, it's not even that, but I mean, there's just a lot of pressure. High school coaches are looking at kids' participation in all of the travel leagues and camps and all of that, and just to even be seen and to play in high school, which I think is unfortunate, you know, but, so yeah, people are busy. I think we can just cut it to that. Like, people are busy or doing other things. And so that makes, taking up a weapon that requires less practice to be accurate. Cause we all want people to be, shooting accurately, to make ethical shots, so I think we can all get behind that. I think the thing with, the distance and, whether or not, who's wounding more animals, that's a statistic that's hard to gather. Right. But I can say with pretty good confidence that, it's hard enough to see every, small branch, and twig that's between you and your target, within 40, 50 yards. You're not even seeing everything there, much less being able to see every twig or branch that might be in the path of your arrow out to 100 yards.
Oh, definitely.
Because you're focusing on your target. And in this case, the scope, crosshairs, they're not even in focus. Those twigs and branches aren't even necessarily going to be in focus. So I think the likelihood of, hitting something, in between you and the animal is increased.
Definitely. And
my personal feeling on why this is in the forefront right now is because we have totally changed whitetail hunting. When whitetail hunting first started, it was to put food on the table. Now we're to the point where people want to raise trophy deer, which is fine, but not everybody's out there to do that. People are criticizing others for shooting what they claim is an inferior deer. And I think that has a big part of this crossbow debate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm seeing.
Oh, I had no doubt, right?
Yeah, I agree, and I'll jump back onto that here in a second, but to jump back where I was going earlier with the numbers of harvests in the deer, I think what is happening is, again, because we are getting older, and as the hunters get older, like my dad, okay, if he wants to hunt in October, that first part of November, where the weather is still halfway decent. And I think that's what's happening is and also with the, as you said, Brad, because we've all changed and now we're not sitting in tree stands anymore. We're sitting, and some people are, but people are sitting in blinds and they're heated blinds and all this stuff. And so you're getting that, 8-year-old, 10-year-old kid out that can be comfortable in that when they're learning, before that they don't want to sit in that weather that's bad and they can't pull a bow back yet. So they're using those crossbows. The older people are using, and I think what's happening is they are shooting those deer. And because people have looked more for trophies, or they're going to go out and shoot one deer for meat, not like it was back in years ago where you needed to shoot 2 or 3 or 4 to feed the family. Now they're shooting one. And they're shooting that early in the year. They're shooting that, with that archery equipment or with crossbows, which call it what it is. It's a crossbow. It's not a bow. And so they're shooting that and tagging that with an archery tag. So that is bringing the harvest numbers of archery way up. And then there's like, I'm done. I shot my one good buck, or I shot my one deer for food. I don't need to go out there and freeze in November during rifle season anymore. Plus, you look at rifle season, it's not what it was when I grew up or when you grew up or any of us. It used to be a big, to do. We'd go out and have a big cookout, and then we'd stay at the cabin and have friends over, and then
there was hunting camp.
And there was
it
was hunting camp. And then you had, deer drives if you had to have deer drives. Well, now nobody wants to have deer drives. They all want to sit because they don't want to push that big deer.
Don't want the neighbor shooting
right?
that.
Yeah.
And
100%.
So they just shut down rifle season. And if we've shot our deer, I'm done. I don't hunt during rifle season anymore. And so that's part of it is then those numbers collapse because the people aren't out there. And CWD killed it here in Wisconsin, and
killed the rifle season. Yeah, as we knew it.
The southern part, and the DNR still pushes that agenda, which that's a whole nother thing. But as that happens, it scared a lot of people. Well, I'm not going to eat the meat, because I'm going to end up dead and blah, 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 blah. And they scared the hell out of everybody. And people are like, well, shit, I don't want to do this anymore. And that killed hunting camps. And
well, I think that was partly, that's partly true. But I think what's maybe equally or maybe even more so in what I saw around here and how I feel about it is that wasn't that the fear of contracting the disease. It's the fact that there's that's when they started adding so many special gun seasons. So we had, because we used to not have all these extra seasons, and the 10-day or 9-day season was longer. It was just opened, and then they left it open for a long time. Originally, early in the early years, and now we have multiple gun seasons. But when we had that long gun, it was kind of like, when do we do the camp? Right. There wasn't this big hurrah. This is hunting season. We've waited all year. We've got the short window. It just drug on and on and on, and it was like, when do we do camp?
Right.
We now have like all these weekends, and that's kind of what it. Watered it down, a little bit, the experience of the hunting season.
Yep. Yeah. And I think,
and let's face it, the Wisconsin DNR screwed up. They said, let's kill them all. We'll get rid of CWD. So that's why they had unlimited license, kill as many as you want, dumpster set up where you could throw the deer in there. That discouraged a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah. And it still does. I mean, and like I said, I think that is why those numbers in rifle season have come down and our archery numbers gone up, because people have gone to the crossbow and made it easier for them to shoot deer early in the year, but now they're filling that tag. So they're not going out and killing, 10 deer because of it. I think they're just killing their one or their two that they normally would anyway. So if you look at that end of it, you're like, so what's it really hurting? Okay. Again, it's legal. It is what it is. It just, do they need their own season? I don't think so. I just, again, call it what it is, man. Call it a crossbow. Don't tell me that you're going out bow hunting tonight, because you're not bow hunting. Okay. And you guys might disagree with me and argue with me, but you are not bow hunting. You are crossbow hunting, and it's legal. Go do it. I don't care. But don't give me some line of BS that it's just as hard and it's everything else. I've shot one deer with a crossbow, and I was like, I might as well picked up a rifle and shot it. Michelle and I were down in Illinois, and I was out filming her. This deer came in on the wrong side. Again, with a compound bow or a recurve, it would have never happened. But she had to hand the bow to me on the other side of the blind, because the blind was too small to draw a bow in. That's why we had it. And even with two of us doing that, handing the crossbow over, doing certain things so I could shoot out one little hole at 40 some yards, I just put the scope on it. And again, that was for both of us. I mean, it didn't matter which one of us was going to shoot that crossbow.
Yeah, the one size fits all.
Yeah, one size fit all. We didn't have to worry about it. So after doing that, I was like, okay, yeah, it happened. It was a great buck. It did what it was supposed to do. But I was like, is this really for me? Not right now.
Definitely, you just outlined, gave us several advantages. Right. And yeah, we were in a camp that, their blinds and stand locations and stand setups, everything's for the most part largely centered around crossbow hunters, and then their shotgun season later. So their window, how they angled the blinds, the shape of the blinds, and then how they angled them for their expected, shot location was set up for crossbows. And yeah, even I, with my little short arms, usually wouldn't be able to pull a bow. So we were, sitting in a blind, which it was, I think, raining that day too. Yes. So we were, kept us comfortable. And then, yeah, we took the crossbow because knew that that would be the best option for that setup. And, animal didn't follow the script. Close, I guess. But, there was tree branches in my way from the edge of the woods, and made the decision to trade gear. I grabbed the camera, and you grabbed the crossbow to make it happen. And that never would have been able to have been possible with compounds.
No. And again, it was legal, so we did it. And so again, I don't want people to think that, I'm like, oh, we need to shut down crossbows, things like absolutely not. Because I think are we still going to have compounds and longbows? Absolutely. And recurves? Absolutely. You're always going to have those diehards. You're always going to have those people. But I think it's what's going to happen. It's the new wave of hunting. I think they're here to stay. We have to embrace them. Whether we want to or not. But I just, again, I don't care. Use them. If it's for your time, because it's easier, fits into your time schedule, because you don't have the time to practice, if you have some disability, use it. I don't really care. Just don't lie to yourself, and don't lie to me about, why or what you're doing with it. Just be honest and say, hey, man, I don't have time to practice, so I'm taking this. Okay, then, but still do me a favor, as a bow technician and one of my best friends, as one of the best bow technicians in the country, I've seen crossbows go out of tune and cause a lot of problems. And so, before you go back out, and not the day before you go back out, go in and make sure that it's in tune every year. And if it needs new strings, it needs new strings. Do your maintenance and still go out so you can ethically harvest that animal. Because no matter what you do, it's all about, ethics and killing that animal quickly and humanely. Whether it's with a crossbow, whether it's a compound, or what it is, practice and make sure everything is ready to go. Because if you don't, nobody likes to see animals, running around with an arrow stuck out of its butt, or out of its head or neck, or something that's not a lethal shot. And things happen. I mean, I'm not going to say, because they happen. It's happened to me. It's happened to anybody who's ever shot. If you hit a branch, if you pulled the shot, I mean, there's a million things that can happen, right? Yeah. But it's the stupid ones that's the stupid shots, not the stupid people. The stupid shots that you go, it's 90 yards, and I think because I'm shooting that crossbow, or even people with compounds, I can.
Oh, you can squeeze it through there.
Yep, I can squeeze it through there. No, and the one that always got me the most, and it got Michelle too a lot. We've been doing consumer shows for 30 years probably going, and when I first started doing consumer shows, I did them strictly for a broadhead company for new archery products back in the day. And I always laughed when people would come into the booth because I had to be somewhat politically correct, which most that know me very well, I am horrible at being politically correct. They would come in and they'd be like, I really hate your broadhead.
Or they'd find their broadhead in the display and pick it up.
Yep.
Hold it up.
And say, I lost the biggest deer of my life because of your broadhead. And that would be when I would kind of step away and let Michelle take over, and she would give, she was very good and very smooth at doing that, and, made it short and sweet and made them feel kind of comfortable about it. And they would walk away, and I'd be like, what a dumbass. I'm like, this, don't tell me that it's the broadhead. Okay, people say, well, the broadhead didn't open on a mechanical, well, I got news for you. I've, seen people screw up and shoot them with a field tip before. Yes, does it take forever for it to die? But if you double lung it or shoot it in the heart, that deer is still going to die. It's still going to bleed out, even with a field tip, right? So if you're shooting a mechanical that doesn't open, which is 2 times to 2.5 times the size of a field tip, it's still going to poke a pretty big hole through it. So, bottom line is, you made a bad shot. Okay? And if you guys are listening to this, you can send me all the hate mail you want. But take a little, responsibility and say, yes, I screwed up. All right? I've been there. I've done it myself. I've lost deer and gun. Man, that looked like the most perfect shot in the world. And it does look like the most perfect shot in the world to your eyes. And I go back and watch it on film and go, crap, I hit it high, or I hit it too far forward, or, there were things that happened, and I just made a bad shot and lost that animal.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the broadhead.
Right.
And so it's the same thing, when you're out there shooting, whether it's the crossbow, whatever it is, a longbow, recurve, it's, if you put a good shot on that animal, you're going to find that animal. I don't care what broadhead you're shooting. All right. But I always got a kick out of that. Man, your broadhead. No, it wasn't. That is like blaming that crossbow. That crossbow made the bad shot. Or your compound sucks because it made the bad shot. No, it's probably out of tune. You're probably shooting the wrong size arrow. You're probably, there's a million things. And, try to figure out what those problems are, whether it's crossbow or your bow. Figure that out with your bow technician to get it to shoot properly so that you can humanely and ethically kill that animal. And let's not beat around the bush and say, we're going to harvest this animal. I harvest corn. I harvest beans. Okay? Truth, reality is you're taking a life. That is the definition of it. When you take the life of something, you kill it, right? So that's what you are technically doing. And when you do that, I don't care how many animals I've hunted and done that, I always have some type of remorse. If you don't, there is something mentally wrong with you. If you don't feel some type of remorse, right? And yes. I do, but, I'm bringing that animal back because we eat a lot of venison. And so that's what I'm doing with it. I'd rather take that animal and shoot that animal, bring it home, and have good food that I know is healthy food, rather than store-bought stuff that has more hormones and shit injected into it.
Right.
Then I don't even know what's in half that food anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things, and it's right back to what are we blaming? Right now everybody's blaming the Crossbows for this and that. Well, it's just like I said, people blame the broadhead. We're always trying to blame something.
Right.
And
Someone told me when I was a first bow hunter, give the deer time when it comes in. Don't rush the shot. Don't get antler, panic because you think you got to kill this big buck. Give it time. Let it present the shot. If the shot doesn't present itself, don't take it. Don't try to squeeze something that you're not capable of doing it. That's where you're wounding the animals. Yeah.
100%. And
take your time.
That's the thing, when people were blaming the broadheads, or they're blaming the crossbows or bows or whatever, it's because most of the time they're rushing the shot, and they say, well, it's the biggest deer ever, and that's probably true.
Yeah.
And that's why they lost their mind for a minute. Yeah, went against their better judgment.
Exactly. And
right.
It's, I'm going to make this happen. Well, if you've got that deer figured out, if you've done your homework and scouted and you know kind of what that deer is doing and where it's going to be, I always look at it and say, I would rather pass that shot. That's a very marginal shot, wounding that deer and having it go off and die somewhere where I have no ideas where it's dead at, and wait until tomorrow. Because if you haven't spooked it, you haven't educated it, you haven't done something, that animal should be back. Whether it's tomorrow or 2 days or a week down the road, it should be back if it's patterned and it's there. That time might give you that shot instead of trying to force it. And that took, just like you said, Brad, I mean, it took a long time to do that, especially when you're younger. And it's because, it's the biggest deer I've ever seen. Well, I understand that,
and
but
then,
wait.
Yeah, well, because then how many people, and not just kids, we're talking adults. Too. These
definitely.
are adults in the
Adults are worse, probably.
Yeah. And I lost my train of thought because of you were talking about something else.
Technology's changed all of our hunting. I mean, if you look at it, the speeds of ammo, the accuracy of ammo for gun hunters, the optics, the rangefinders that can dial in ranges for your optics, wind compensators. I mean, we have changed or improved, I guess I should say, all of these weapons. So, bottom line is, shoot what you want to shoot, right?
Right.
I mean, that's my feeling at this point. We have way too many people that are against us as hunters. We have too many different organizations that are taking what I feel is the wrong side on this whole topic. We should be promoting hunting. There are states that have that are voting this next year to end all hunting and fishing in their state. So they're looking for hunters like us to not agree with each other and take our rights away.
Right. 100%. And that's why I said, I think, Michelle says that I'm strictly against them. I'm not against them. I'm not against them in the having them have their own season and stuff. It's, again, just call it what it is, because it gives you that advantage. So don't tell me it doesn't have it. If you want to use it, but don't give me the excuse. And as you said, I mean, everything's changed. And because it's changed, and let me jump back there. Maybe Michelle isn't that harsh saying that I'm strictly against it, because I think she knows that I'm not strictly against them. There's certain things that drive me crazy about it. But jumping back to where Brad was earlier too, and how hunting has changed because of trophy hunting and where that has gone to, growing bigger deer and growing. I'm starting to see a change though, doing all these consumer shows and stuff that we still do, talking to all these people. I'm actually starting to see people, that trend is kind of, I don't want to say reversing itself, but there's a lot of people that aren't as diehard as they used to be. And I think because they've destroyed hunting on their property or even family things. I mean, I remember in Illinois years ago, I did a seminar called Age Your Antlers and talking about which is the best in management and what to look for. And I remember there were a couple of young kids in there, and they were with their dad. And they hadn't hunted in like 3 or 4 years. These young kids didn't. And Dad brought them to the show hoping to get them back into hunting. They wanted to come listen to...
How old were they? Were they mid-teens, late teens?
Yeah, they were mid-teens.
So not little kids. I mean, just want to kind of
right.
clarify.
Okay,
they were...
Yeah.
And they're like high schoolers, maybe, or even a little older.
Yeah, because they started hunting, 10, 11 years old, and they hunted for a few years, and then they quit. And that's why they wanted to come to that, because they wanted to see what I had to say and have their dad listen. And afterwards, they came up and talked to me, and I said, well, have you guys had some good luck? And they're like, no, we'd quit hunting. And I'm looking at them, they're 16, 17 years old. And I'm like, what do you mean you already quit hunting? Yeah, because
I think at that point, they're at the age where most kids are like gung-ho, want to shoot everything that walks, kind of a thing, right?
Dad had wanted to turn the property into a trophy property. So he said that he put a 150-inch minimum on the property for everybody. And I said, okay. And they said, we hunted, each boy said they hunted about 5 years, never killed a deer that big. Dad would not let them shoot anything else. And they said, well, we're just not having fun anymore because we're getting out of bed in the morning. We're putting all this time in. We're doing all this. And we see deer and we see good deer, but we don't get to shoot them. And I said, how many deer have you guys shot off that property that are 150 inches plus? And he says, well, between my uncles, my dad, and my grandpa, and us, it was like 400 and some acres. They had killed one in 8 years. Okay? And I said, but how many old deer do you guys think you have on there? I asked the dad. He said, oh, we've got old deer that just run around not changing. And I said, why aren't you shooting those? Well, they're not 150 inches. I said, they never will be. I said, if they're that old, if they're 5-year-old deer, 6-year-old deer, and they're 130 inches, they're not going to be 150 inches. They don't have the genetics for it. Kill them. That 150-inch deer you killed, how old was it? He says, oh, we sent it in. I was pretty disappointed. It's 153 inches as a 3-year-old. Exactly. So that deer has the potential to be your Boone and Crockett, 170-plus inch deer, if you let it get to 5. So you kill those other deer. That's where people have gone with, managing deer. That's what, I look at, okay, if it's old, I want to kill it if it's a 130-inch deer that's old. However, if I have a 180-inch deer that's the same age, yes, I'm going to try to kill that deer first, obviously. But if I have a 3-year-old that's a 150-inch deer, I'm letting that deer walk all day long. I have the chance my neighbors might kill it. If they do, they do. But if I kill it, I know that deer's dead. But I'm still going to have fun. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to shoot that older deer, right? And as far as my neighbors go, I could care less. I've got a couple neighbors that are, they're great. They want to wait and shoot older deer too and bigger deer. And I had one neighbor for years, we didn't talk very much because when we started things, he got mad at me because I asked him one day what they had killed during season. And he says, well, it's none of your damn business. And I said, just asking. Well, I know you're just trying to kill big deer and we kill whatever we want. And I said, that's fine. I said, what I try to do on my properties is I try to get these deer older. And so I study my deer. I study the pictures of these deer a lot. And so I know how old they are. I know, from year to year which one made it and stuff. I said, all I want to do is check that deer off the list, that you killed it. I don't care that you killed it because I don't own that deer. He jumped the fence. You paid your tag. You pay your taxes. You put your food plots in, whatever. Shoot whatever you want. Shoot what makes you happy. I care less. But I want to check it off the list so I'm not looking for it next year and thinking something else happened to it. That's all I want. And he says, well, it's none of your business. I'm like, okay, fine. Well, then, I've talked to the landowner. So this would have been one of the hunters that was on this land. And so I've talked to the landowner since, and he's like, hey, I understand what you're trying to do. It's no big deal. He says, as long as you're not going to yell at me for shooting that little deer. I said, I care less. Would I truly like to see him let them go if they've got great potential? Sure. But he has grandkids. He's got, other kids that are on that farm that it might be their first deer or their second deer ever, or they want one deer for food and that's the only one that gives them the opportunity. So be it. It's the good Lord makes more deer every day, every year. And so you roll with it. And, that's kind of like with all these crossbows with the laws. You roll with it and try not to fight. I mean, we have our opinions. I have my opinions. But if this is where everything is going, then change with it, just like technology. Kind of roll with it and do what we have to do for the future of our sport. Because like you said, Brad, these other states are trying to shut it down.
Yeah. It's a shame, isn't it?
It is. I mean, they take one part and pretty soon there's nothing. And, I saw a video the other day online, and people I'm sure have seen it, of a black bear that caught a fawn. And wow, I mean, it is brutal. That thing has it by the neck, dragging it through the woods, actually holds it up. Mama deer is trying to do what she can, and this fawn is just screaming. I mean, it is graphic and brutal, but it's nature. Yep. It's reality. And the tree huggers and anti-hunters got on that post and went absolutely insane. And
Did they think we should all go kill the bear?
They thought, you shouldn't be showing stuff like this. This is cruel. But then if you shoot an animal, they go nuts too. You are mean, you're this and that. And they're like, oh, that,
right.
I wish Mama would have, got to that fawn earlier. And, that's just, that bear is so mean. And what the heck do you think nature is? And nature is cruel. It's.
You know what else is cruel? That's nature. And, when we were talking about the states, going to be voting to end hunting, what's cruel is animals dying of starvation.
Right.
So not only is this very sad for hunters and the traditions of our hunting sports, the heritage, it's very sad of what would be to come for the animals, because there is no other effective way at all to manage deer populations or some of these other animals. And what will happen is they'll die of starvation,
right? Because
they won't have the habitat to sustain a growing population. Yeah. That's really pretty brutal as well.
They all think it's going to take care of itself. Yep. It's just going to work itself. No, it's not. They're going to get diseases, and then the problem is that those diseases, they will transmit to humans, even if you're not eating them or shooting them. They'll get to you somehow. Either, they'll end up getting something funky and rabies and whatever, and then pretty soon they're crawling into your tent at night and biting you in the big toe. And I mean, those animals, if they're starving, they become dangerous too. You start starving bears, they're going to start killing Fufu, your dog, and Fluffy, and they're going to start killing kids and people and everything else because they need to eat. They aren't going to discriminate. and these guys, I don't understand how they don't understand this and how mean they can be. I mean, we get death threat after death threat on our social media pages. And I'm like, okay, so it's not right for us to go out and shoot an animal, go home, cook it, and eat it, but it's okay to kill a person. It's okay to take a human life that you're not going to eat, I hope you're not going to, that you're not going to eat and you're not going to do things, but you can kill that person, but you can't go out and hunt an animal.
There's no logic there,
no,
let's face it.
Their mentality in that and their logic is just crazy to me. I'm like, you guys are nuts.
Well, and I think, in this dystopia that people think that, or, utopia that people imagine where everything just takes care of itself, and we don't need hunting to manage, the landscape and environment isn't what it was 200 years ago. There are far more humans on the landscape impacting and into the animals' environment. We're into their spaces, crowding them. So things are just so far different than they were. You can't expect to remove like a piece of the puzzle and expect the rest of it to be okay, because just so many things are different. You can't even compare today to a couple hundred years ago.
Right. I mean, there's so much that these people are building houses in the middle of old sanctuaries, where these deer and turkeys and everything. Like, Brad, you're in Madison. I mean, when I go up to Madison, I can go up to take photos of turkeys and watch turkeys in certain parks in downtown Madison. And now people in Madison are complaining, I saw it on the news this year, that these turkeys are now attacking people and they're attacking their dogs and they're attacking, control them. And they're like, but then the others are like, well, we love the turkeys. We don't want them shot. We don't want them moved. Okay, but then 5 minutes later, you're complaining because, they just pecked your cat's eyes out.
You did have some that said that you were surprised by some people walking in the park. They were like, I wish
was,
these hunters would shoot more turkeys.
I was very surprised because, Madison is very liberal and very, animal rights activists, let's say. And I would go up there and I'd run into all kinds of people. Some were hunters, some weren't. And I ran into this group of elderly women. They'd walk every day at this park. And they're like, yeah, they need to, I'm not for hunting. I don't like it, blah, blah, blah. The one lady, she says, but she says, 3 years ago when I had to buy walking sticks. And I said, well, I said, you had to buy walking sticks. I said, you look like you're in pretty good shape and don't need walking sticks. She says, I don't. She says, I bought them because I have to beat the turkeys off the trail. She said, because they'll come after me, so I have to hit them with walking sticks to get them out of my way.
She's weaponized herself.
And I started laughing, and she goes, I'm serious. And I watched her walk, and she is serious. I mean, this park has hundreds of turkeys. And if you walk the trails, they will gobble at you. They will attack you. It's crazy. And so, she's beating these turkeys out of her way with these walking sticks. And she says, again, I'm not for hunting anything else. She says, if people want to eat these or if they're going to donate these to some of the food shelters in Madison and stuff, I'm all for they need to come in and kill some of these.
Madison, like many other areas, much of Madison and its many suburbs used to be farmland and woods. And it's not, as it's sprawled and sprawled and sprawled. So the animals have, either, moved out, right? Or they've found these little pockets of woods, which then are the parks, right? Where you have these urban populations of animals, which then bring its own challenges to control from a management standpoint.
Yeah.
But what did we start talking about? Crossbows, right?
Well,
Look at where we ended up.
And that's
Yeah,
yeah.
we kind of wandered off a little bit.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
where
all
we
kind of. I
ended.
think it's all tied to the
Sure
same
it
thing.
is. Sure it is.
And how the industry's changed and how we just have to go with the flow. But the other thing with the things getting shut down and trying to shut all these things down, and even with Crossbows, if we try and keep pushing to shut this down, we're losing money. Okay, the hunters put more money into conservation than anybody else, any other organization. The outdoor sportsmen. I shouldn't say just hunters, because fishermen too. And we put all this money into it, and so the more stuff we shut down, the more money we lose. Okay, and so that's then fuels like Oregon is the state that's trying to shut everything down. Colorado is trying to shut down, trapping and hunting for fur, which is, mountain lions and coyotes and bobcats and everything else. They're trying to work on that. And so when we start shutting these things down, we start losing that money to battle them. The organizations that we give money to as hunters and fishermen to battle for us, then we lose those. Like Hunter Nation, Howl for Wildlife, all these different things. And there's a million of them out there. There's, Whitetails Unlimited.
The conservation organizations.
The conservation organizations, NWTF, Ducks Unlimited, all this. When we stop funding them, we start losing more rights because we have nobody to battle for us. And so think about that when we start saying we need to shut down crossbows, we need to shut down long-range rifles, we need to shut down. The more we do that, the more we hurt ourselves because we don't put that money back in.
When I think like the money from sales doesn't go to those organizations. But what it does, what keeping our numbers up does is, those organizations, you need to be a member. You need to join those organizations to send them, your money. But they can speak to the numbers, when they are talking, we represent X number of hunters, X number of duck hunters, we have this number of duck hunters in the state, or this number of duck hunter, this type of hunter or trapper in the state. They have numbers that they can take, forward, and use that in their data. Right.
And I do think that some of the money, correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, but I think you probably know this. But I do think that from the sales of things, some of those dollars from any hunting organization or any hunting product, I believe that part of that tax dollar that goes from that or part of those sales go into the Preston Pittman Fund.
Yes. Pittman Robert,
yes,
federal fund, 11% excise tax on firearms, ammunition, and archery equipment, 10% on handguns. And this goes to local state and federal agencies to support wildlife conservation, habitat restoration, hunter safety programs, so on and so forth.
Right. No doubt.
So again, it comes back to us. So, back to the original with Crossbows and going down that rabbit hole is we got to find that happy medium. And I think that whether we like them or we don't like them, we're going to have to embrace them at some point. But
absolutely,
it's
at minimum tolerate.
Yes. And again, I
coexist.
Yes.
I think coexist. Maybe I like that word the best.
And we have to, because if we sit here and say we're going to just fight this, make its own regulations, just like they already have. It doesn't have to be its own season. People that shoot them just need to be, again, smarter about it. And just like when compounds came out, okay, I mean, you can go all the way back to that. There were longbows, and then it got to a recurve, which was a little faster. And then you got to compound bows, and now you look at technology.
Right, all the traditional archers. I'm sure, right? Everybody, the diehards were. Everybody against the compounds. I bet it was no different. Than what we see now.
Everything that goes with it. Right. Trail cameras, tree stands, broadheads, lighted knocks. Yeah. There's some states you can't use lighted knocks.
Yeah.
And
it's just one thing after another. And again, if that makes you more successful, if that makes you more accurate, more humane in the woods at killing what you're trying to kill, have at it. But, just like I've said before on this podcast and other things, just don't lie to yourself and don't lie to your friends and everybody else and say, well, and make excuses. I guess it's not really lying. It's making excuses why you're doing it. Just say, hey, I don't have the time to go out and do it. That's an excuse.
I'm just saying, I crossbow hunt.
Yeah.
Can it just be that simple?
It can be that simple. I use a crossbow. Okay.
I'm a crossbow hunter.
And move on. Yeah. Because we're all after the same goal in the end, and that's to hunt, enjoy the outdoors, and just do what we love to do. That's what we're trying to do. And
enjoy that renewable resource, white-tailed deer. There's nothing better.
Well, it's not only deer. I mean, it's turkeys. It's
more deer than
elk,
everything,
it's
probably. But
everything. But it's a renewable resource that we love to do. And again, I think we've pointed out a million reasons why not to fight it. When it comes to money and supporting organizations and all these different things, learn to tolerate, I guess, is the best. And Michelle's learned to tolerate me after 34 years of marriage.
We just coexist.
So,
hats off to Michelle on that one.
Yeah. We coexist pretty nicely. That's my new favorite word, I think.
Coexist.
I'll get my own little bumper sticker.
Yeah.
No, funny. All right, let's wrap this up. I think Brad said it well. Art kind of tied up with some key points here at the end. I think we need to, if it's legal, use it. Do your best to be accurate and ethical and well practiced with whatever weapon you're choosing to use or what you're doing in the outdoors. But get out there, enjoy being in our wonderful outdoors and the renewable resource. And by all means, we need to stop fighting amongst each other because we have plenty of other people out there fighting against us. We can't afford to fight within. Use your weapon of choice, support your conservation organizations, and own the season.
Follow Own the Season Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for listening.
Check back weekly for new episodes.